At the last place that I worked at before doing this, it was the tale of two completely different scenarios for me. Reason being, when I first started working there, and for a couple of years, I was doing just enough to get by. I wasn't going that extra mile. I wasn't really putting in a lot of extra work simply because it was never really asked of me. The manager that I had, she was super cool. I liked her. She was nice, but she was just lax. She was just like, oh, whatever. As long as y'all getting y'all work done, cool. That's all she really cared about. But then we got a different manager. And with this new manager that we got, he was like, hey, he would talk to us individually, get to know us individually, and asked us, what did we really want to do? What did we want to gain from this? What were we trying to accomplish? What was that next goal that we had in mind for our future with this company? And he had, through those conversations, he really tried to get the most out of you as an employee. And you saw just such a big difference between their styles, between their personalities from my first manager to the next. And with the first manager, when things were rough, she would tell you like, hey, okay, yeah, we got to get better. Things need to improve. But it was almost like you saw the way that she did things and her message was sort of stale. But then when we had the new manager, when he would tell you, hey, what are you doing? Like, hey, are you really trying to push? Hey, are you trying to get better at this? And it was like, whoa. And when you saw the way that he moved, the way that he worked, and everything that he was involved in throughout the company, you were like, oh, he is really practicing what he's preaching and trying to get the most out of us individually because he's giving the most himself. So that really reminded me of John Harbaugh, and I wonder if John Harbaugh's message has gotten stale with the Baltimore Ravens, and I really wonder, has John Harbaugh lost the locker room?
Yeah, this feels like a dream, and you know just what I mean. You see my boy, he like gotta made it. Boy, he's a fan, and he like the Ravens, and you know just what I mean. You two team, keep it clean. You see my boy, he like gotta made it. Boy, that's my homie, ain't that right engraving.
So you too, team, keep it clean. What's going on? It's Ingraven here with another video. And in this video, just a really serious question. I'm not here to say, oh, fire Harbaugh, fire this, fire that. But I just really want y'all to think, because the question made me think. It wasn't anything that I came up with myself. Shout out to Heather, who is a Team Keep It Clean channel member and a Team Keep It Clean patron. Appreciate you, Heather. But she asked a question in the comment section of our post-game thoughts video. And she asked the question, has John Harbaugh lost this Ravens locker room? And that was nothing that I had really thought too deep about or really dove into too much because it was never really a question for me. Not that I feel like he hasn't or has lost the locker room, but it was nothing that ever came to mind for me. But then when she asked that question, it reminded me of somebody in a live stream on Sunday during or right after the game. And they said, I wonder if Harbaugh is going to get fired. And I was like, what? No, Harbaugh ain't getting fired. Like, y'all know that. But they said that the way that this team is moving, the way that they're acting, they're doing a lot of things that teams do right before the coach loses the team and they end up getting removed. And that really made me think like, like, what is he talking about? But then after rewatching the game yesterday and just really thinking about what this season has been, it is a very legitimate question. Has John Harbaugh lost the Ravens locker room? Last year, 2021, we know the Baltimore Ravens, I think with Lamar Jackson, they went like 8-3, but they ended the season 8-9. Of course, all the injuries. We ain't got to go through that. But there were a lot of close games. The Ravens like hardly ever got whooped. And so many of their games were just close. And they end up losing by 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, whatever it may be. So many one-score games, but they just ended up usually coming up short. Through that towards the end of the season, time after time again. And a lot of people were like, okay, well, it's the injuries. It's the injuries. And it's like, okay, all right, cool. Say it's the injuries. All right, no problem. But then this year, you look at this team this year, and you look at the wins. And the wins came against Joe Flacco and the Jets, Mac Jones and the Patriots, Joe Burrow and the Bengals. But then with the losses, Tua and the Dolphins. But you had a 21-point lead in the fourth quarter. Josh Allen and those Buffalo Bills. You had a, 17? They had a 17-point lead, I believe, right? And they were up 1 point, like 17-3, and they had a significant lead in that game too. No, they were up 20-3. Excuse me. They had a 17-point lead. There we go. And then in this last game, they were up 20-10 against the Giants with like 6 minutes left. Not in the half, but in the game. Up 20-10. And these collapses, they've just been collapsing. And it's funny, Marlon Humphrey, even though I think Albert Einstein didn't even say this, but Marlon Humphrey had tweeted something the other day, and he said insanity is the definition of insanity is when you're doing the same thing over and over and you expect different results. And for Marlon Humphrey, he has, of course, his food takes. He has, of course, his college football takes. But then very rarely does he have his cryptic takes. And that's one of those tweets where Marlon Humphrey, he left it up to the viewer to analyze exactly what he meant without saying it. So I just wondered, was there something that was directed at the coaching staff? Now, are we here to put all the blame on the coaching staff? Certainly not, because all the blame does not belong to them at all. But when you see the way that this team has crumbled and you see some of the same things that are happening with this team over and over and over, and so many different contributing factors that have led to this team continuing to collapse, it makes you wonder, is this locker room really in John Harbaugh's full control? I look at the games, especially the Giants games, but you look at really all of the games throughout this year and the penalties. The team can be very, very sloppy. You look at the false starts, and not only the false starts, you look at the illegal shift, illegal motion, illegal formation. This is stuff that is supposed to be coached and practiced during the week. You're supposed to be going, and this is simple stuff. You look at 12 men on the field. I'm like, every time I see that, it's like, really? And not to say that mistakes don't happen, because they certainly do, even to some of the best coaches. But when you look at the consistency of the silly penalties that the Ravens get, it's like, really? What is going on with this team? And then it almost seems like there's almost like it can be a lack of maturity. This team just, they lack so much discipline. They lack discipline. And I would think as a coach, because I liken it to being a parent. As a parent, you in your house, you train your child to go be out there in the world. You train your child on how they should be, how they should talk, how they should act, and you try to best prepare them for when they go out in the world. So when they encounter different scenarios, they're like, oh, okay, my father, my mother, whoever my caretaker is, they taught me about this. All right, so let me execute what they showed me. And your kids are going to slip up. They certainly will. But your goal is to try to make sure that they do the right thing more than they do the wrong thing. And I feel like it's the same way for a coach. As a coach, you train these players to go out there into the football world, into these games, and you train them to hopefully do the right thing more than the wrong thing. And that comes to the plays, that comes to obviously execution. It just comes to all a lot of the simple stuff, the repetitive stuff. it comes down to all of that, and just to see the way that these Ravens have been, it's like what is going on, and that's what makes me really wonder. Like, is the message really getting to the team? Is John Harbaugh's message sticking with these Ravens, or are they over it? In the Giants game, specifically, Dafe away, there was the play where the Ravens had just got a third down stop, so it was fourth down. But if you're watching the game, you see a Dafe away. He's holding the Giants player helmet up in the air, holding it up in the air, twisting it a little bit, kind of like poking the Giants player, like taunting him almost. So he's doing that, holding it up in the air, and then he puts it on the ground. Then he gives it a little kick. And I'm thinking, like, is this really happening? Is this really going down? And then they're like, oh, unsportsmanlike penalty on number 99 of the defense, 15-yard penalty, first down, Giants. And it's like, oh. And the thing is, like, you got to understand the situation. I know with football, it's bang bang plays, things happen so fast. So these dudes got to make split-second decisions. So I know that can be tough. And even if you have time to think about enough decisions in life, it can be tough. But in football, you make split-second decisions. But if you're properly trained, if you're properly coached, then you're going to know, like, I shouldn't be holding this person's helmet up and swinging it around and then putting it on the ground and kicking it. Because I know that's not just a bad look for me, but it's going to cost my team. It's going to cost not just me, but it's going to cost the guys that I'm riding with. So if you know that, if you're properly trained on that, then that situation, stuff like that doesn't even happen. If you get a false start every once in a while, okay, I get it. You get called for a pass interference, you get called for a holding, something like that. Oh, okay, illegal contact, okay. Offsides every once in a while, I get it. But it's the silly stuff like that. It's unacceptable. But it starts from the top. That's why I wonder, is the message getting stale? We go back to the Dolphins game. Ravens, they're taking care of business. And this has been a pattern with the Ravens this entire season. Not even just the Jets game, the Dolphins game, the Patriots game, the Bills game, the Bengals game, and then the Giants game too. To where the offense specifically, and really just the team as a whole, but it's like they just fall asleep in the second half. They fall asleep in the second half. So I'm wondering, like, what is the message? Because usually halftime is when you go in there, you deliver a message, you make adjustments, and what is the message that's being told to the players at halftime that's just not clicking? What is that? Because something has got to be terribly wrong with this whole thing. It's got to be. Because if it was just one game and a collapse happened, oh, okay, cool. Maybe even 2 games and this collapse happened. But, again, 21-point collapse, fourth quarter. 17-point collapse. 10-point in 6-minute collapse. These collapses are happening for almost a collapse against the Bengals too now. But these things are not just coincidence. If these were like 1 point here, where you leading by 1 point, you leading by 2, 3, 4, 5 points, something like, oh, okay, game going back, oh, okay, I get it. But these are significant leads that this team is continuing to give up time and time and time again. Ravens are literally breaking records. They're breaking records for a team that has held double-digit leads in every single game of this season thus far. And they're 3-3. They've held double-digit leads in every single game this season thus far, and they're 3-3. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. What is the issue? Is the message not resonating with the players? Is it not clicking? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Because obviously what you're doing is not working. It is not working. And it's like the Ravens, they are finding creative ways to lose. So what do you say? Oh, we got to look at the film and get better. Oh, we got to look at this tape and get better. Oh, we got to improve on different areas. Something's got to give. Something's got to give. The way that the Ravens give up these big leads, something's got to give to where just you got to nip this thing in the bud. But exactly what is it that you got to nip in the bud? Something got to, in my opinion right now, something got to be shaken up. Because it's not clicking. It's really not. Because this team, they ain't got the best roster in the world. They certainly don't. But they certainly don't have the worst either. And for you to build up these leads the way that every game, for you to build up the leads that you build up every single game, and it just comes crashing down. That's unacceptable. So has John Harbaugh lost the Baltimore Ravens locker room? I would hope not, but actions speak louder than words. And the actions of this football team right now, through the first 6 games of the season thus far, they would tell me that he has.
Yeah, this feels like a dream.